Hello, friends. Welcome. I'm Ayya Soma, and I'm here with Ayya Vaddha. And we're here in Italy. So today we're going to read a sutta and discuss it a little bit. So if you've had problems sleeping with these days, a lot of people seem to have problems sleeping. Well, then hopefully today we'll find out how to solve these issues. All right. So first we can pay homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham namam sangham namassami. And so we will be reading today from Anguttara Nikaya 335. So I'm going to put it in the comments for all of you to follow along if you'd like to. And Venerable Vaddha, can I invite you to read?
Sure. Okay. So we're reading the Hatakasuta, which Bhante Sujato will be reading from Bhante Sujato's translation on Sutta Central. That's the link that Ayya Soma provided for you there. And I will start from the beginning. So it reads, So I have heard. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Alavi on a mat of leaves by a cow path in a grove of Indian rosewood. Then, as Hataka of Alavi was going for a walk, he saw the Buddha sitting on that mat of leaves. He went up to the Buddha, bowed, sat down to one side, and said, Sir, I trust the Buddha slept well. Yes, Prince, I slept well. I am one of those who sleep at ease in the world, said the Buddha. The winter nights are cold, sir, and it's the week of midwinter when the snow falls. Rough is the ground trampled under the cow's hooves, and thin is the mat of leaves. The leaves are sparse on the trees, the ochre robes are cold, and cold blows the north wind. And yet the Buddha says, Yes, Prince, I slept well. I am one of those who sleep at ease in the world. Well then, Prince, I'll ask you about this in return, and you can answer as you like. This is the Buddha speaking now. He says, What do you think? Take the case of a householder or his son who lives in a bungalow, plastered inside and out, draft-free, with door fastened and windows shuttered. His couch is spread with woolen covers, shag-piled, pure white, or embroidered with flowers, and spread with a fine deer hide. It has a canopy above and red pillows at both ends. An oil lamp is burning there, while his 4 wives attend to him in all manner of agreeable ways. What do you think, Prince? Would he sleep at ease or not? Or how do you see this? He would sleep at ease, sir. Of those who sleep at ease in the world, he would be one. What do you think, Prince? Is it not possible that a fever, born of greed, physical or mental, might arise in that householder or householder's son, burning him so he sleeps badly? Yes, sir. The greed that burns that householder or householder's son, making them sleep badly, has been cut off at the root by the realized one. That's the Buddha, made like a palm stump, obliterated and unable to arise in the future. That's why I sleep at ease. What do you think, Prince? Is it not possible that a fever born of hate, or a fever born of delusion, physical or mental, might arise in that householder or householder's son, burning him so he sleeps badly? Yes, sir. The delusion that burns that householder or householder's son, making them sleep badly, has been cut off at the root by the realized one, made like a palm stump, obliterated and unable to arise in the future. That's why I sleep at ease. And then the Buddha gives a poem following that. He continues, A Brahmin who is fully quenched always sleeps at ease. Sensual pleasures slip off them. They're cooled, free of attachments. Since they've cut off all clinging and removed the stress from the heart, the peaceful sleep at ease, having found peace of mind.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so as actually Venerable Vaddha has said right before we started, basically, if you want to, for everyone who wants to sleep well, you just need to attain awakening. That's pretty much the summary of this sutta. But also, yes, we can really reflect upon how there is a strong connection actually between spiritual practice and also something as kind of common as sleeping. And so how sometimes we might relate to our insomnia, sometimes we might relate to our difficulty in falling asleep as something purely physical. So maybe we might go and look at our what we have been eating or what are kind of our lifestyle choices, and try to get some medicine in order to fall asleep properly. But maybe sometimes we have to shift a little bit the perspective, and perhaps look at what kind of other nutriment are we giving to the heart, or lack thereof, right? Because I feel that disclosure, I'm not enlightened like the Buddha, but in our community, we've been doing in the past couple of years quite a lot of actually austere practices, right? So like we go and sleep a little bit, the description on how this sutta starts. So in very what looks from the outside very kind of uncomfortable place where to sleep, right? So without a mattress, in the forest. So at night it can get, actually, even if it's in the summer, it can get really cold. And I remember once I started doing our wandering practice, or our, like, living in the forest here in Italy, one thing that I started noticing was how I was sleeping so much better than when I was sleeping in a kind of like comfortable situation in the town. Like right now, actually, this winter, we are here in Italy, but we're not in the forest. We are in, we have an apartment, and we have a mattress, and it's kind of like not, that fancy. It's a small little mattress, little pad, but, it has that, it's definitely a little bit more quote unquote sophisticated than how only a couple of months ago I was living in the forest here, and I've been having a little bit of trouble sleeping. And so this is very interesting to reflect upon. Like whenever we are in a situation not of deprivation, but rather in a situation where we're practicing a little bit more intensively, where we are putting ourselves, like we're taking silas, we're taking precepts, and we are really sticking through. We are recollecting the Dhamma, we're present with the Dhamma, and we're learning in each moment to let go of our aversion, to let go of our desire, to let go then of our delusion, thinking that there is another reason for which we are suffering in that moment. Then there is peace, then there is tranquility, then there is contentment. We have. Okay.
We're back.
Yes, we're back. I don't know if you saw it, but we disappeared. There was a moment of emptiness, and now we're back. But anyway, so that was my reflection that came to being. Venerable Vaddha, do you want to have some words?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Venerable. I think that's helpful, and yeah, I think it's a good point that sometimes we have our spiritual practice relates to our sleep in ways that we don't expect. It's interesting because I was recently going through the airport returning to Italy from Australia, and I met a Buddhist person, or not a Buddhist, but a practicing meditator. And he told me, I practice meditation 20 minutes every night before I go to sleep. And he said something to me like he got into meditation because of having trouble sleeping, actually. And I've heard this about other people as well. I don't think he's unique in that. It's quite interesting because, sometimes people might actually start meditating because maybe they have a lot of thoughts, and it's not because they particularly want to attain enlightenment or end the cycle of rebirth. They just want to go to sleep. and just want to be able to get some rest and not be overwhelmed by anxiety or stress or worry or obsessive thinking or just emotional affliction that kind of blocks that easy, peaceful sleep that the Buddha is talking about in this sutta. And I think that that's really nice, actually. I think that's wonderful because someone starts meditating, and just the power of the Dhamma is that it's leading onwards, as the Buddha says. It's opanayiko. That's one of the qualities of the Dhamma that we recite and reflect, and the Buddha encourages his disciples to recollect and bring to mind. And is that quality that essentially the Dhamma, it is not something that needs to be kind of forced onto someone. Once you get a taste of something, even something very simple like easier time sleeping, right? Then it can lead you onwards, and next thing you know, you've lost your hair and you're monastic, or something very simple like that. So and then also, as someone mentioned something else apart from meditation, there's also the fact of sila. And I remember hearing a story of a famous, I heard, not a personal story, but a story that I've heard of a politician who went to see this monk. A monk was invited to them, and politician invited them for, I think it was breakfast dana. This is Ajahn Brahm, for those of you who might have heard the story. And it was, well, maybe I should just say it. It was the president of Sri Lanka, and invited Ajahn Brahm to his mansion or whatever for dana. And the way Ajahn Brahm tells the story is that he showed up, and the president came out, and he was all groggy, and he didn't look very rested. And he told Ajahn Brahm, "I'm a failure," which you don't usually hear from politicians, especially in private, or to someone who they don't know. It's not a personal friend or something. But apparently what happened was the president went on to say that he had gotten into politics to help stop the war with the Tamil people in Sri Lanka, and it had actually gotten worse or something like that. So that's an interesting example where you see how, not about him personally per se, we can't know, but how something like sila, right? Something like just your actions can affect your sleep. And that's a quite extreme case, but I think all of us will be familiar with a different case. Like maybe we have to make a big decision, or we've made a decision in the past that now we're regretting, or we're wondering, was that right or was that wrong? Or we have been living a life which is very agitating. And the Buddha here mentions fever. For example, maybe doing a lot of idle chatter, which is one of the aspects of right speech and our sila with our speech, or doing a lot of divisive gossiping and kind of speaking in ways that are just a bit harmful or a bit agitating to the mind. And I think that all of us will have some sense of just what it feels like to be disturbed when you have been living a life that's not super conducive to peace of mind, just in your actions, not per se in related to meditation. And the difference also that it feels when you've made a good choice, right? Like, have any of us ever gone to bed after doing something really wonderful? Like you had a good day and you thought, oh, this is a really nice day. And you go to bed and it's very peaceful, and it's nothing particularly profound, but actually it's something that, as someone mentioned, we might not reflect on. Because maybe we have those times where it's very peaceful. We go to bed peacefully, think, oh, yes, this was nice, and I'm happy about this. And then you go to bed nice, and you sleep well, and you're comfortable, and you wake up, and you feel refreshed in the morning, and you feel like you want to start another day. Compared to you go to bed, and then you are up late thinking or wondering or worrying or whatever it might be. The Buddha gives a simile of an anthill, and he says it's like a hill which is, I think he says, fuming by day and smoking by night. And he says that it's like when someone is working all day and then they go to at nighttime, they're thinking about what they're going to be doing the next day. So it's always active, it's always burning. And so I'm sure that we've experienced some degree of that. And it's interesting because we might not appreciate those good moments, right? Like we might take for granted, oh, what would it be like if every day I went to bed like that, right? If every day I had lived in such a way that was towards making a peaceful mind, then that would actually affect my sleep, right? Maybe we don't think about it. We just think about wanting to get rid of the negative and wanting to be positive, but we don't see in our own experience how the Dhamma is actually teaching us. And that's something that monks like Ajahn Chah, in the forest, monks would often talk about, right? They would, say, well, people say that they don't have time to practice or learn the Dhamma, but when you get up in the morning, is your body aching and so on? It's teaching you right there, right? It's always teaching us that the noble truths, essentially. And Soma, I think, was referring to that being in the forest, right? You're kind of forced to sort of see that. So I think that sometimes these simple things in our life we can take for granted. And maybe I'll just close with something that I found helpful is advice from another monk, Bhantanyana Vimala. And this was apparently advice that he gave to many people, because I was told by one of the monks that I spoke to personally that he received this advice from him when he went to see him. And also Ajahn Brahm receives a similar advice from him. So I've heard that this is advice that a German monk, Bhante Vimala in Sri Lanka, would often give. And I have an adaptation of it. So I'll give you the first advice and the way that I find it kind of adapted. Apparently, Bhante Vimala would say that this was to monks, but you can also apply it to the lay people, right? He would say at the end of the day, after you've done your day, don't look at what you've attained or not attained or what you've reached or not reached. Ask yourself if you've tried your best and you've strived and you've put forth all the effort that you can towards practicing the Dhamma, or were you essentially not, right? So were you practicing to the best of your ability? And he said, if at the end of the day, then you feel like you've practiced to the best of your ability, you've really put forth effort and you've tried, then you can sleep well and you don't have to worry about what you've done or not done or what's happened or not happened because you're living according to the Dhamma. The way that I adapt this, because I think that's really wonderful instruction and from a monk much wiser and more practiced than I am. But the way that I find also useful is to think at the end of the day, what have I done well? Like recollecting all the good things, because sometimes you might actually find it harder to sleep if you think about, well, what are all the ways that I failed today? So that's also useful to learn. But I think it's good to set aside time. In my experience, it helps when you, at the end of the day, you think, what are all the nice things I've done? So even like, oh, well, I smiled to that person and I said, thank you. And I gave this person and I did service and I took this time to help them out. And then I did this meditation and I did chanting, so you look at all the little good actions that you did, like all the actions of kindness and all the actions of gentleness and all the actions of peace and calm throughout the day. And you take all of those together and then you say, wow, actually, I did a lot of really good things today. And that actually motivates me, at least it motivates me to practice more, right? To want to do more of that, not to become lazy. So, and then it makes you feel really happy. And then also I like to share the merit. So then you can share the merit, like, oh, all the good things I've done, may they benefit these people. And right before you go to bed. So it kind of reminds you at the end of the day of all the good things and it brightens the mind. And then it also invites other beings to rejoice in that. And I think that that's a nice way to kind of take those instructions about uplifting the mind before sleep and also learning for the next day to keep that going on and build a more regular practice. I think that's useful.
Sadhu. Thank you, Venerable. Yes, what also comes to mind is actually the power of non-regret, as you were speaking, right? So the difference in kind of having those unrealistic expectations, which are kind of a little bit connected more, once again, to craving. So whenever we're looking at our conduct and if we tend to start getting depressed because we're not there yet, we're not enlightened yet, and we could have been better, etc., that's actually craving. But instead we are confident that we've tried our best, we've really aroused energy, and we've really did the best that we could in any kind of aspect of our life. Then there is that's the non-regret. Maybe the end result isn't perfect, we're not enlightened yet, but we have no regret. Like there's nothing else that you could have done, right? And so we also see the impersonality of Nibbana. We see the impersonality of actually awakening. It's not something that just through willpower we can attain just because we want it. And it's because me, me, myself, and I. But rather it's when those conditions are in place, that's the result, that's the cessation, right? So whenever we're like, it's not striving too much, but it's attaching too much to the results and trying to control too much our life. And that's like a lot of greed, hatred, and delusion. Maybe slightly more sophisticated than, actually a little better, definitely a little better than, just going in the world and wanting to accumulate more success and more. So definitely we're a step better, because at least we want things that are a little bit valuable, but it's still distressing the mind. It's still nourishing the hindrances, which then creates those conditions for not being able to rest well, to sleep well. But instead, when we have that contentment, that non-regret, that we're like, okay, well, I've done my best, I let go. And I let go of a lot in so many different aspects, then we're creating those natural conditions for them to, we're just resting, we're giving a break, taking a break, both mentally and physically. So good to see some friends. Hello, Jayanta, Maria, Gregory, Yankiapo, Hasanta. Hasanta, I believe, is also from Australia. I think it's our Hasanta, our friend from Australia, and Moonfire. Good to see you all. So if you have any comments and questions, feel free to type them in. Otherwise, Venerable, do you have any other thoughts that come to mind on the topic?
Well, maybe I thought one thing that came up is, I think in the sutta, something that's interesting that I'm not sure we addressed maybe at least explicitly was, one of the things that's interesting in the poem is the Buddha mentions, he says here, a Brahmin who is fully quenched always sleeps at ease. Sensual pleasures slip off them, they're cooled, free of attachments. And I thought this was an interesting also part of the teaching here. And it reminds me of another teaching of the Buddha, where if you look in the sutta, right, the Buddha is comparing he actually asks, don't you think that someone who was living so comfortably and with a life full of sensual pleasures, don't you think that they would sleep well? And the person says, yes, they would. And then he kind of gives some examples of how there might be other obstructions, even though they do have those pleasures, right? Then the greed and the aversion and the delusion can kind of cause distress in their mind, right? And there's another sutta, which I may be misremembering, but it's something where someone comes to the Buddha and they say, oh, such and such a king lives such a life of pleasure. They live so blissed out, basically always enjoying all the pleasures that they want, and they have all these access to all the pleasures, right? And the Buddha says, well, what do you think? Do you think even a king at that time, which would be basically most people living in modern suburbia, you have a TV and the food can be ordered to your home, so it's probably more luxurious than actually a king in ancient India, in certain ways, right? So the access to sensual pleasures is very constant. You never really need to be lacking if you have a certain amount of material support in today's world, right? But the Buddha says, well, do you think that there's even, times when essentially he's agitated, right? Even amidst all that pleasure. Do you think he's feeling constant pleasure all the time? And he says, no, of course not, right? And I think we all know that, right? Even if we imagine the perfect scenario where you have the most, I don't know, you live in you sit down on a massage chair and you have the amazing TV programs, and then you can fly all over the world and see everything that you want to see, and you can have the best friends in the world and have the best conversations, and you have the world's best library right next to your door, and you have all the movies that you could want, and you have all the music and the concerts and the food. You have a professional chef in your kitchen, and you have everything that you could ever possibly imagine, and you have all the money and whatever, right? Whatever the essential pleasures might be. I think we would still know, well, yeah, it wouldn't always be pleasant, right? If we're realistic about it, we can imagine the pleasure of those things, but there would be times when we're a bit agitated by greed, hatred, delusion, right? Like we're just a bit irritated, or a bit, or very irritated, or we're, still desiring things, or impatient, or just deluded and confused, and then we run into problems. And in this other sutta, the Buddha says that he can sit for 7 days experiencing nothing but pleasure constantly, right? So then he's talking about, in that case, he's talking about samadhi, right? So a experience unrelated to sensual pleasures. And in this, he's just talking about sleeping, but it's a similar principle. And I think it's interesting because here he's essentially pointing out how sensual pleasures, although we usually think it's very comfortable. And if you think nowadays, there's often this idea of, you get the cozy slippers and the warm heated floor and the very luxurious mattress and the soft pillows, and you have a little eye mask, and then maybe some, what are they called? Essential oils spritzed into the air, right? And you have maybe a salt lamp, which is the right colors, and then also a nice bath with the soap balls that make the foam in the bath, whatever. And then you have the manicure and so on. And so that's all, I think most of us would agree.
And then a sleeping pill.
Yeah, sleeping pill, yeah. So maybe some pharmaceuticals or a massage or whatever. And so usually I think if we think, oh, how do I want to sleep well? That's what the society would tell us, right? We need to get more comfortable, basically. More sensual pleasures. But here the Buddha is kind of pointing to something interesting, is that actually when we incline the mind there, and this is also related to what Venerable was saying before about austere conditions. But when we incline the mind towards essential pleasures, we're actually building up the conditions for desire and aversion in the mind. And then those are actually what will agitate the mind, right? Because it doesn't actually matter if you're sleeping on a cold floor, or if you're sleeping on a mattress. What matters is, are you happy to be there, right? So if we're happy to be there, it doesn't actually make any difference. I think we all know that. If we just look into our hearts and we say, well, I'm happy to be here, then there's no difference whatsoever. Physically, it's different, but on terms of how you sleep, it's the same, right? So it's interesting because when we incline our mind towards those sensual pleasures, we're actually inviting that agitation, or inviting that impatience and that desire and that aversion and delusion into the mind. And we're kind of clouding also our wisdom and obstructing our ability to basically to meditate, because we won't be able to let go of the hindrances, right? We're making the hindrances stronger. And so then we're blocking our ability to see the peace of contentment and the peace of non-desire, the peace of also just kindness, because we are more controlling with how we want our world to be. So we're less accommodating of others. And all of those things make it harder to sleep. So I find that very interesting, how the Buddha is connecting sensual pleasures to sleeping poorly. But actually we would usually think, and I think that's what the Buddha is kind of saying here, right? He's kind of saying, imagine this person is so comfortable. We would usually think, well, the more comfortable you are, the better you sleep. So not to say that we should all go sleep onto a bed of nails, but there is something there, right? Like, can we consider the way that sensual pleasures actually disturb us rather than how they make us more comfortable, which is what we usually focus on, I think.
Yeah. Thank you, Venerable. Yeah, exactly. Really, once again, looking at how we turn into hungry ghosts whenever we are seeking so many things outside, right? So whether it's different types of sensual pleasures, or actually like kind of attainments to be in a particular way, shape, and form. So all of that, it's this constant seeking, this constant thirst that just creates a lot of agitation in the heart and mind. So I think we have all convinced you, right, to get rid of mattresses and go on, not on bed of nails. So that we don't do as a practice, and it's not recommended. That's a little bit too intense. That's on the other side, the other extreme of mortification. But definitely trying to minimize as much as possible. So letting go of everything that is non-essential. And the more we train our mind really to understand, to distinguish the essential from the non-essential, right? It can be our simple day-to-day practice. We don't even have to be doing formal meditation, but we can always ask ourselves, do I really need this, right? And most often than not, it will be no. And once again, not just if we're in a shopping center and wanting to purchase this and that, but really anything, right? That we are, especially lay people, have this opportunity to practice this all the time. Do I really need this new job that I'm craving? Or is it fine to be in the job that I am? All right, like, that's fine. It's okay. Do I really need to earn more money? Well, maybe not, right? What is actually essential? What is it that I really need? And then we'll see that most things are actually non-essential, and what is really essential is the Dhamma. So we can really like just end up with the Dhamma by looking at how non-essential and non-vital everything else is. Okay, so no questions, but we have also Amnis that said hello. So we can end this morning with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And we'll see you again tomorrow at the same time, because we will be the ones, actually, the monastics leading the monk chat. So any questions you might have on Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, you can type them in the chat for the monk chat for tomorrow, and we'll try our best to answer them. All right, may you be well and happy, and may all good things come to you.